Yeah, I don't know. I'd say it's grace of God, right? The magnificent grace of God. Um, that's the moral of the story. Um, my name's Ruben Faith. I was born in Mexico, and we moved to Canada when I was 6. We moved to Altona, and I lived here till I was 12. Then we moved to Morden, but I grew up in a home with an abusive father. It was pretty intense, so there's a lot of anger, stuff like that was going on in my life. Yeah, when I was a young teen, I was going to church and stuff. For the most part, I would have considered myself a believer. And then when I was about 14 or 15, I fell off the wagon, so to speak. I discovered drugs, and I got into the drugs pretty hard for many years. Probably till, well, I got into the drugs. First it was just weed, and then I started doing coke, and then from there it escalated into different drugs. But when I was 17, I went to BC because I had a warrant out for my arrest. Like, being raised in a home where there was violence, I had violent tendencies. So there's a lot of violent situations that happened in my life. And at the time, I enjoyed hurting people, right? There was a lot of hurt inside me, and I enjoyed hurting people. I should have been dead many times, right? But yeah, anyway, when I was 17, I went to BC on the run because I got charged with some assault charges, and they told me I was going to get tried as an adult, and took off to BC to avoid prosecution. And I spent 9 months on the run out there, and while I was out there, I started working for different organizations, doing debt collections and selling drugs. And I was out there for 9 months, and then I got into the meth and the ecstasy pretty hard while I was out there. And when I came back to Manitoba, a friend of mine called me up. He was in the hospital and said that he was dying. He had cystic fibrosis, and he had a limited time, and he wanted to see me before he passed away. So I went to see him, and then while I was in the hospital, he told me, get your life straight, get off the drugs, and go turn yourself in, because he knew I had a warrant. So I did one of the two things. I went and turned myself in, but I didn't get off the drugs. In fact, I just got into it harder after he passed away. And with the deeper I got into the drug lifestyle, the more violent I became. But yeah, I was selling meth, and I was selling ecstasy, selling guns, and things got pretty out of control. And then in 2005, I got busted. I ended up going to jail and spending some time in rehab, getting off the drugs. After rehab, I ended up getting sentenced to house arrest. And, that was by the grace of God. I didn't end up going to jail because they were asking, when I first got arrested, they were asking 11 to 14 years. Between rehab and getting sentenced, I was back into the drug lifestyle, selling coke for different organizations. Well, one specific organization, but I was pretty much right back on the same track as I was before I went to jail. And I got busted with a gun in my car, and so I was looking at another 3.5 years in jail. And I remember the day I went to court, I ran into a guy that said, he just came up to me and said, "Jesus loves you, man. Like, can I pray for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, whatever. I kind of laughed at the fact that he said, "Jesus loves you," right? I didn't realize the profound impact that had on my life at the time, but it had a huge impact. So anyway, I didn't know I was getting sentenced that day, and I ended up getting sentenced that day. And instead of getting 3.5 years, they cut me a plea deal for 6 months house arrest and a year supervised probation, which, again, by the grace of God, I didn't go to jail. But I remember praying before court, saying, give me one more chance, God, and I'll straighten out and I'll get my life together. And I prayed that prayer probably a few hundred times over the course of my childhood and my teenage years, because I ended up in the back of a few cop cars, right? But yeah, I ended up getting house arrest, completed the house arrest, and while I was on that house arrest sentence, I ended up quitting with all the drugs, getting into my faith, and just, God radically changed my life. God just revealed himself to me in ways that I never imagined. Like, first of all, he gave me the ability to feel. He softened my heart so that I could feel things that I didn't think I could feel, like compassion, joy, peace. When it came to like my teenage years, a few things that were like a few places and people that were instrumental in my childhood, like that had a positive impact on me, was like there's the Youth for Christ in Morden, which I went to every week. It was a safe place to hang out where I didn't have to worry about, get into fights or people starting anything or any kind of drug use, being involved in any kind of drug use. So it was a safe place, and they had a skate park, so it was cool. I got to skate, right? And there's a couple of friends that I had that were a huge impact in my life, but due to my decision making, I ended up turning my back on my faith and being a delinquent, right? So, but I don't know. God's radically changed my life. It's been good. I work in a tattoo shop now. I love what I do, and I use my job as a tool to witness to people every day. You get somebody stuck in your chair for 3 hours, you're gonna have the opportunity to share your faith, and it's been an absolute blessing. Never give up hope, right? Like, even if a kid seems hopeless, right? Like, look at the things that I was involved in, and then you take that into consideration. If there wouldn't have been people that had my back and people that didn't give up hope and didn't if there wasn't people that kept watering that seed that had been planted earlier on in my teenage years, like, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And there's a lot of kids out there that are in the same situation. They don't have any hope for themselves, so sometimes they need somebody else to show them the hope that God has in them, and the hope that they still have for them. It's nobody's hopeless. Nobody's beyond help. Like, there's the ability for a person to change it 100%, like from a very demonic life to an absolutely blessed life. So yeah, I don't know, the people that if it wasn't for the friends and the family that never gave up hope, and the support community that I have and have had my whole life but sometimes neglected, I don't know where I'd be today, right?